Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Sober Social. In this video, I want to discuss the concept of non-neediness, one of the most profound concepts that I've ever learned about when it comes to becoming just a more attractive individual. It's not even just necessarily your social journey, it's just being an individual that people want to be around. And it's ironic because this non-neediness, this lack of need for whatever you're talking about, whether it's admiration, attention, etc., that in and of itself is a magnet for those things. And so what I want to argue in this video is that non-neediness is not a technique to be applied and then decided whether or not it's like the right fit for you, whether it works, right? It's not a technique, but a decision to be made, and that decision can be made today. I want to ask you a question. Have you ever had the experience of finding somebody like you experience the energy of somebody else that's just very gravitational, it's very magnetic, or maybe you've experienced this type of energy within yourself and you weren't really sure like what it was or how it came about? Well, that was non-neediness. It might have been non-neediness among other things, but non-neediness is such a powerful mindset, and that gravitational pull, that's what it gives you. And so that's what I want to share with you in this video. What we're going to be discussing, I'm going to kind of go into why it is the case that there's this ironic magnetism to the lack of need that you exude in your demeanor. And then we're going to give you some questions on the questions are designed to get your brain to be thinking a little bit and hopefully rewire it so that immediately you can make this decision, because remember, it's not a technique but a decision to be made. And I'm hoping that the way that I frame these questions, and I'm asking you to ask yourself these questions, it's going to make you so that you're immediately less needy or non-needy, right? And then I'm going to discuss boundaries. This is a related topic. I'm going to discuss what boundaries are, how to make them, why they're so important. And then finally, I'm just going to make a quick note on narcissism. And narcissism is I feel it's very important to mention this because it's likely that at least some of you will, when you hear this concept of non-neediness, or maybe you've already had this experience in the past, there's this kind of distinction, and it's a simplistic, but it's unfortunately a very popular distinction between what women are attracted to and not attracted to. And this is obviously for the guys out there. But there's this simplistic distinction between women gravitating to the asshole while they blow off the nice guy, and it's not that simplistic, or it is simple, but it's not that black and white. And so I just want to make a little bit of clarity. You don't have to be an asshole to be attractive, and I certainly don't want you to be the quote-unquote nice guy. So we're going to go into the distinction there and where the line is that you can actually be non-needy but not go down the rabbit hole of being a narcissist, therefore overcompensating. So we're going to go into all that, starting with why is it that this ironic magnetism happens when we don't exude a neediness towards other people. So let's consider the opposite of non-neediness for a moment. This is the person who is very desperate for your attention. They're desperate for your approval, or maybe you've been this person before. I know that I have. I'm not ashamed to admit, because I didn't have this education at one time. I used to be that one who was desperate for the attention, desperate for the approval, and when it wasn't given to me, when it was difficult, it was very confusing, and I felt like I needed it. I felt like I needed to get that in order to be like a person of value. And it was just a very, very dark place in my life. But anyway, that's the person that's needy. That is the person that is very, very desperate for something, and it's almost as if they feel like they don't have any room to consider the needs of others, and so they're either not aware of or they're not particularly concerned with the needs of the people around them, and so they go out and they're looking to take. They're looking to leech energy. They're looking to leech validation from other people instead of being the one dispensing that. That's a very high pressure situation. It's not comfortable to be around, and it's certainly not pleasant. So why is it that this non-neediness principle naturally arouses this magnetic vibration? Why does the wind blow? Squirrel? No, seriously. Why does the wind blow? The wind blows because gases naturally move from a place of high pressure to a place of lower pressure. When you are not needy, you know deep in your heart that you need nothing from anybody there. It takes the pressure off of yourself, and therefore everyone around you can feel that, and they're naturally attracted to it. Just like this little puppy here, who's, I admit, probably a little bit desperate for my attention, but you know, he's not making it awkward, he's not making it high pressure or difficult, it's not heavy, he looks a little tired puppy. Even if you're not necessarily actively engaging with people, if you're not like the most generous person and you're just working on this feeling comfortable within yourself energy, this principle of non-neediness, people will still naturally gravitate to the place where the pressure is lower. And that is where, because you know deep in your heart you don't need anything from anybody, you've taken the pressure off of yourself. You're no longer there within you're not in your head thinking, trying to piece together a puzzle and like, you know, seeking out things for yourself and bringing that pressure to the table. You've taken it off, and so even if you're not engaging with people, it's still a very naturally attractive, naturally gravitational type energy. I have had it on multiple occasions, and I do genuinely hope that you get to taste this for yourself. I've had it on multiple occasions where I've gone to the club or gone to like the bar with like a dancing area, you know, and I've gone out alone, not seen anybody I knew there, went out to the middle of the dance floor before talking to anybody, and just started dancing to kind of loosen myself up and get into that flow. And just because I knew so deeply in my heart that I didn't need anything from anybody, I was unconcerned not only with what other people were thinking of me, whether or not they were taking pictures or, you know, whether I looked like a fool or whatever. Not only unconcerned with that, but I was unconcerned even with my concern for that. I hope that you understand what I just said. It's a little bit meta, but it's very natural, and explaining it logically makes it sound more complicated than it really is. But that is the ideal. It's when you're really unconcerned with even your concern for other people's approval or disapproval of you, you know? So I've had it on multiple occasions where I went out and I felt that, and because I was so comfortable with myself and just having a ball, you know, enjoying the music, enjoying the dancers and the dancing, and just feeling that within myself and just enjoying it genuinely without looking to take anything from anybody else. I've had it where girls, I mean people, you know, in general, but girls particularly is what I tend to notice because I'm a guy, you know, and this is what I'm interested in. They will surround themselves around me. They'll put themselves in my presence. They'll close proximity to me, and I can just feel, just like they can feel the pressure is lower within me, I can feel within them that they want me to open them. They want me to say hi. They want me to say something silly or be fun or whatever, you know. They want me to engage with them because they can tell that I'm not needy, you know. And so I genuinely hope that you get to taste something like that, my friend. So now what I want to give you before we go into boundaries is a couple of reconsiderations. I want to challenge your brain a little bit and give you some reframings that I hope will flip that switch in your brain to be like, wow, you know what? I can really just today, like I already mentioned in the intro, I can right now decide to be the one not worried about whether or not she likes me or whether or not he likes me, but I can be the one dispensing the social approval or the social acceptance. So here they are. Instead of worrying whether or not somebody will like you, that group at the table, the couple of dancers on the dance floor, the guy sitting next to you, the girl sitting next to you, perhaps you could ask yourself, do I even like them, or will I even like them? Instead of feeling like you need to impress, perhaps you could wonder, do they impress me? Shout out to Mark Manson. These are a couple of things that I pulled from his book, Models, by Mark Manson. Incredibly powerful book, and I highly recommended one, especially if you are a guy looking to get better with women. But my friend, I'm going to tell you right now, if you want to get better with women, get better with people. You're going to have to do that anyway. So anyway, right now, let's talk about boundaries. Boundaries are where you draw the line. They're where you say, no, person, I am not willing to tolerate this behavior because I find it disrespectful, I find it leechy, I find it bullying, or whatever it is for you. I am not willing to tolerate that behavior. And you would think that this would turn people away, right? I mean, you're basically saying to somebody, no, I'm not okay with what you just did. And to me, it blows my mind, this boundary concept, because similar to non-neediness, you know how like it's ironic when you say or you exude, you don't necessarily have to say, but you can exude that you don't need the person's approval or the attention, you could really care less, and yet that ironically it's a magnet for it. Well, similar here, when you tell somebody no, you say very clearly, I'm not willing to tolerate the behavior that you just did, and you feel them be like, wow, I'm actually more attracted to you because you stood up to me. And here's the reason why. I explained the irony of the non-neediness magnetism. Here's the reason that boundaries are also a very powerful, ironic, attractive trait. When you're willing to stand up for yourself, the person that you stand up to, the person that you stood up to, sees very clearly the message that you gave them, which is you're willing to stand up for your values. And so when they are entertaining becoming a member of your life, because you're an awesome fucking guy or girl, they believe, and rightly so, that you're probably willing to do the same for them. And so when you stand up for yourself and you stand up for your values, here's what it does. Every time you draw that line and you say, no, I'm not willing to tolerate that behavior, you show that you have standards for yourself. You have values that you're not willing to compromise for him or for her, for a family member or anybody. And those are up to you. It's a very powerful, very empowering concept. All right, guys, before we wrap up here, I want to draw your attention to what the two concepts that we've just covered have in common, which is self-love and self-respect. When we love ourselves and we respect ourselves, we cannot help but to exude these things. And what I want to remind you of is that this self-love and this self-respect is not something that you have to work for. It's not something you can work for. It can't be acquired. It's just a decision to recognize the self-worth that is already there. You can't cultivate something that you already have, but you can recognize it. You can choose to acknowledge it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and finish up here by talking about the sort of cautionary side of this whole story, which is narcissism. So we've been talking about these fundamental concepts of what it means to be an attractive person, non-neediness and boundaries. And I do very much believe that these concepts are absolutely core to becoming an attractive individual or being an attractive individual, both male and female. But I also understand that when you first come across these concepts, if you've never had this education like me, it can be very easy for a lot of guys to overcompensate because of the pain and the frustration that they felt in the past, feeling in themselves that they're a nice guy, they're a sweet, loving, caring guy, and they see that girls are kind of tending to gravitate to the asshole over them. And so when they first learn about having boundaries for themselves and not placating to the needs of others, not seeking out the attention or the approval, they overcompensate and they can very quickly slide into narcissism. And so I just want to caution you, girls are not attracted to the asshole. I know it seems on the surface that that's what they like if you're, seeing it with a very new or sort of naive eye, but what they really want is just a guy that has standards for himself. He has self-respect, like I just talked about. And what I really want to say here, having boundaries and not being needy, not placating, not seeking out the approval or the attention of others is not about superiority. It's just about self-respect. So whereas the nice guy, or excuse me, not the nice guy, the non-needy person simply has self-respect, the narcissist has more of a glorification, a self-glorification. He is actually raising himself above other people, or, I guess simultaneously pushing others' value in his eyes beneath his. And that's very unhealthy, and it's just not necessary to become an attractive person. It will work, on the surface, it might work, but even then, you're probably going to be attracting a lot of other low self-esteem and just, this is not probably very fair of me, but just kind of lower quality people. And it leads to a lot of toxic relationships and, heartbreak, addictions, and all that stuff. So, and when I say addictions, I mean addiction to the person, to the people, to the relationship, to that volatility, So I want to leave you here with one comment that I hope you can cling to this, and I'm hoping that you use it as sort of like a life raft to remember and bring yourself back to this check, so you can keep in mind for yourself whether you're being narcissist or whether you're being non-needy, because you have to remember that these are probably nothing that I say in any of my videos is black and white, ever. It's not that you're going to be either a narcissist or a non-needy person, and everybody out there is either one or the other. That's not the way the world works, It's a little bit more like a scale than that. You can be narcissist at times and unfair at times, and then you can learn from your mistakes and you can, improve. And then other people, they might be on the non-needy edge. And well, I guess what I just said was the non-needy edge. I've been rambling a little bit, but let me just give you this last this last little point that I'm hoping you can cling to and use as a gauge to remember, so that you don't slip into that very toxic reality of being a narcissist, which, like I said already, on the surface may work, but in the long run, and if you're interested in the value of other people, and you want to actually be a generous, loving person, it's not good. So here it is. The main difference, I would say, between the polar side, the pole of being non-needy and just self-respecting, and then the pole of being a narcissist, though on the surface those two are very similar, the difference, I think the core difference between those two is in empathy. So if you just remember to have empathy, you'll be all right, my friend. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and got a lot of value out of it. These concepts completely changed the way that I understood socializing and understood being an attractive person, and they made so much sense to me right away. And everything about me has changed since I came across them. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and I will see you next week.